Forbidden nuns, hidden cases of lust and temptation in convents. In the 17th century, a young nun was caught in a trance, shouting names of demons and describing scenes of explicit desire. All this inside an isolated convent in the interior of France. The scandal echoed even to the Vatican. But this was not an isolated case. Throughout history, various records show that convents were not always spaces of seclusion and spiritual peace. Behind the high walls, some religious face intense dilemmas between faith, desire, and power. In this video, you will meet true and often muffled episodes of lust, temptation, and transgressions in the convents. Cases involving priests, nobles, and even pacts with the devil, revealing a dark and almost forgotten side of religious life. A. The scandal of the Ursulines of Loudun, 1632. In the small town of Loudun, France, a convent of Ursuline nuns became the epicenter of an affair that mixed collective hysteria, repressed desire, and political persecution. It all began when the Mother Superior, Jean de Angers, claimed to be tormented by erotic dreams with a local priest, Urbain Grandier. Jean claimed that the religious visited her at night in disturbing visions, leading her to temptation and sin. In a short time, other nuns began to report similar experiences: convulsions, screams, contortions, and indecent speech during the rituals. The official explanation? Demonic possession. The charges against Grandier escalated rapidly. Even though he was a respected priest, known for his eloquence and for not blindly following the hierarchy of the church, he was tried and convicted of witchcraft. Records show that part of the clergy used the episode to eliminate a political opponent. But there are clear indications that the outbreaks in the convent were linked to deep sexual repressions and rigid control over the nuns' lives. The case shocked Europe and raised an uncomfortable question: to what extent faith, when imposed, can become fuel for delirium and repressed desire? 2. The Convent of San Ambrogio, Heresy, Poisons and Pregnancy, Rome, 1850. In the heart of Rome, the Convent of San Ambrogio housed an apparently devout community. But it took an anonymous tip to the Vatican to reveal a plot of abuse, manipulation, and sex scandals involving nuns, priests, and even a prince of the church. The German aristocrat Marie-Louise de Bourbon decided to enter religious life after her husband's death. She was received in San Ambrogio with enthusiasm, but quickly noticed something wrong. Secret rituals, burned letters, suspicious medicines. He began to suspect that some sisters were being poisoned, and that the convent hid forbidden intimate relations. The Vatican investigation confirmed it. Mother Superior had sexual relations with nuns and claimed to receive orders directly from the Virgin Mary. Some nuns reported mystical visions that coincided with rituals of collective pleasure. And more serious, it was discovered that 2 nuns had become pregnant, and the babies mysteriously disappeared. The suspicions fell on members of the clergy, who visited the convent frequently. The scandal was muffled, but the documents of the case were archived in the underground of the Vatican. They did not come to light until more than a century later. This case exposed not only the repression of religious orders, but also how much desire could be manipulated under the mask of faith. 3. The Nuns and the Gardeners. Secret love in the convent of Palma, Spain, 18th century. In the convent of Santa Clara, in Palma de Mallorca, the routine seemed unshakable. Prayers, silence, penance. But between the corridors and inner gardens, a discreet network of clandestine meetings grew. It all started when the convent began to employ men as gardeners and outside helpers under strict surveillance. Or at least it was expected. Reports preserved in judicial archives show that some nuns maintained effective and sexual relations with these workers. The meetings took place in the gardens, in the bathrooms, and even in the cells, with the complicity of some older sisters who pretended not to see. The scandal came to light when a novice, being discovered pregnant, confessed everything to a local confessor. The investigation revealed that 2 of the gardeners were not even regular employees. One of them was a former suitor of one of the nuns, who forged papers to enter the convent as a servant. The other, a former seminarian expelled for misconduct, was identified by local authorities after trying to escape with a nun. The case generated public outrage and served as an example to reinforce the isolation of female convents in Spain. But for historians, the episode reveals something deeper: the persistence of desire and search for affection even in the most closed spaces of society. 4. Intimate confessions. The convent, a scenario of manipulation and desire, Portugal, 16th century. In Lisbon, during the Inquisition, the convent of Our Lady of Conception gained silent notoriety among members of the elite. The reason was not in prayers or good works, but in what happened during the rituals of confession, under the pretext of the sacrament. Some nuns received frequent visits from priests who exceeded the limits of spiritual guidance. The most notorious case involved the nun Inés de Castro, not the historical character, but novice of noble origin who entered the convent at age 14. According to inquisitorial records, she began to hold regular meetings with the confessor of the convent, Friar Manuel de Silva. In his words, he said that I sinned by thinking of him, and that penance was to think more. The scandal came to light when letters exchanged between the two were intercepted. The content was explicit and, more than amorous statements, contained detailed descriptions of physical encounters that took place at combined times, always after confessions. Other nuns were interviewed, and at least 4 of them reported similar experiences. The friar was expelled from the order and sent to a remote monastery. Inés was isolated in cell for an indefinite time. The episode revealed how the rigid structure of convents could be distorted to feed not only desire, but also power relations disguised as devotion. 5. Nocturnal pactos. The devil in the convents of Louviers, France, 17th century. Louviers, a small town in Normandy, has become the scene of one of the most disturbing cases in European ecclesiastical history. In 1647, the convent of St. Louis was investigated for suspicion of heresy and witchcraft. What was discovered exceeded any expectation. Nuns involved in sexual rituals, supposed pacts with demons, and ceremonies held under the moonlight in the cloister of the convent. The complaint came from a group of newly arrived nuns who were surprised by the rituals conducted by the Mother Superior and some veteran sisters. They reported chanting in unknown languages, marks on the body after ceremonies, and nocturnal visits from a masked man who never spoke. Later identified as a priest suspended for improper conduct. During the interrogations, one of the sisters confessed to having signed a pact with the demon Asmodeus, brokered by the mother, in exchange for spiritual protection and carnal pleasure. Documents of the trial reveal explicit descriptions of the encounters, with details that left even the inquisitors puzzled. Some of the nuns claimed they had been forced to participate. Others claimed that they found a freedom there that they had never known. The convent was closed, the mother executed for heresy, and 3 nuns sentenced to life imprisonment. The case became known as the demonized de Louviers, and past years forgotten in the archives of the church. Today, it is studied as an extreme example of how sexual repression, blind faith, and power structures can become a theater of delusions and transgressions. The convents were, for centuries, spaces of isolation, silence, and discipline, but also a perfect scenario for everything that the church tried to contain: desire, guilt, power, and transgression. Behind the thick walls and windows, many women live experiences that went far beyond faith. Some have been victims of abuse and manipulation disguised as spirituality. Others found in the cloister a hidden form of freedom, although in conflict with the dogmas they swore to follow. What unites all these cases, from Loudun, Louviers, Rome, Palma, and Lisbon, is not only the clash between the sacred and the profane. It is the evidence that, even in environments controlled to the extreme, the human drive for contact, affection, and freedom manifests itself, sometimes in a subtle way, other times in dramatic collapses. Faith, when imposed without understanding, can become a prison, and desire, when repressed, finds tortuous ways to emerge. These episodes do not represent the totality of monastic life, but reveal a side often erased from religious history, that of nuns who face real dilemmas between devotion and body, between silence and truth. If this video made you reflect on this little-told side of the story, share in the comments which of these cases impacted you most and why. See you in the next video.